Alright, hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial, another video editing tutorial, more specifically to do with the audio and narration settings that I have, that I currently use in my video. As you can see, it's the 6th of December 2020, so this is what I use currently. This may change over time. To give you a bit of backstory, like I have no experience when it comes to audio engineering, mixing audio, mastering audio, like none of that stuff. And to be honest with you, like this was one of my biggest weaknesses when I began video editing. I just didn't know what to do with the audio or the narration and how to make it sound good, how to balance it out with the sound of the music, etc, etc. So what I'm going to show you in this video is kind of been things that I've learned over time and have taken from different tutorials. I'll link one of the biggest tutorials that I've taken a lot of inspiration from in the description of this video. And so as I go through this, just bear in mind that I don't come from like any kind of audio engineering background or anything. Like I have no idea. I've had to learn things as I go along, and my phrasing and my phrasing of technical words and understanding is going to be all over the place, but I'm going to show you all the effects that I use. Of course, I'm using Premiere Pro, although I imagine some of these effects you can apply in different software as well. So let's just jump right into it. I've opened up a project right here, just a fresh project, and what you'll notice is on this first audio layer right here, all of this stuff, this is all narration. And when I structure a lot of my videos, I'll always have narration in the first audio layer. You really don't want to mix around like narration and music and sound effects kind of within the same layer. I mean, that'd basically be impossible to do if you've got music and narration at the same time anyway, but you want to keep your layers kind of clean, or at least the ones where you've got your narration in there or the ones where you've got music. And so this second layer that you see down here, this one that I've highlighted, this is the music layer that I normally put the music on the second layer of audio. And then over here, and pretty much anything that comes below the narration and the music would be a mixture of either sound effects, additional little audio effects that I have, or just the sound of like another clip that I might use in a video. So I'm going to give you a show of what each of these layers sound like. This narration is taken from a new video that I'm working on, so small spoilers, but don't worry, I'm not going to play too much of this. Just again, quick navigation tutorial, plus and minus keys let you zoom in and out on your Premiere Pro timeline. What you can also do with audio layers is you can just double click a particular layer just over here in this spot and it will expand it out, so it makes it a lot easier for you to see the sort of audio spikes or whatever you call these things. Again, I like technical words and stuff, I'm not going to be able to really know what they are, but you can expand out any layer you want. So that's the narration. I can expand out the music layer. I can expand out two at the same time as well. So here I've got these kind of audio effects. I'll show you what these are in just a second. So first let me show you what the narration sounds like. Now this is no effects applied to this. This is just purely from recording in Audacity and basically exporting it as a wave and just taking that and putting it into Premiere Pro. I've obviously had a bunch of cuts in here to remove any breathing or mistakes and stuff, and this is typically what it looks like after I've done all the cuts. I've also strung it all together so it's really quick paced and there's no real pauses in here. But again, all of this narration, this is just me, no effects, just talking straight into the microphone. It was a Shure SM7B microphone, and it was exported from Audacity in a wave format and just put into Premiere Pro. So I'm going to play what that sounds like to you. And if you want to play individual audio tracks, all you got to do is hit this little S icon over here that just stands for solo, and so you can actually play this track just on its own without hearing the additional layers that we've got. So I'm going to play that for you now. It begins with a seemingly simple, innocent idea, that thinking positive. So okay, you get the general gist. That's the narration. Doesn't sound that great, and if you compare it to kind of the videos that I have, like there's a big difference in how they sound, and that is what I'm basically going to show you now, what kind of effects that you want to apply to the narration to make it sound good, to make it pop out a little more. And now I'm just going to play you what the music layer sounds like so you have an idea of what we're dealing with. So it's pretty intense. This is going to be an interesting video. It hasn't been released yet, and maybe by the time you're watching this, who knows, but there's some intense music that we've got going on here on this second layer. And then now this third layer, it's not really a sound effect. It's more like some additional audio / music that I've added in on top of this original music track. Sometimes I might do this because I think there may be an added sort of effect or atmosphere that I can get from doing this. And I'll just play you what this is now. I'm going to solo this bit and play it. You'll notice that there's several sort of splits. This is all the same audio. I've just included a constant power effect so that they sound pretty smooth in transitioning. But they're literally this exact same audio effect. I'll play it, and you'll notice I just make it a little quieter with each one. Because as they're getting quieter, the actual original music track is getting louder, so you don't really notice it. But what I liked about this audio effect is it just adds a little bit of an extra sort of touch to the atmosphere that I'm creating in the video. And so I'm gonna play all of this together, right? With the narration, with the music, and with this sort of audio effect that I've got here. And you're gonna hear the sort of mess that it sounds like. And I remember when I was first like getting into making videos, I was just so like baffled about how I can deal with this. So let me just play it. It begins so you have an idea. Seemingly simple, innocent idea that thinking positive will bring about positive experiences into one's life. With mainstream promotion of the idea, with celebrities promoting it, entire careers based around teaching it, surely there's merit to the law of attraction. But the further you go down... Okay, so you got the idea. Generally, like, the music is louder than the narration, and you know, it's you can barely hear me speaking. The audio effects and the music is just much louder than my actual speaking. Now, you could simply just drag this down, this volume slider down on the music, if you wanted to, and just have it there and then play. Positive will bring about even that is loud. Let's do that even more. Positive experiences into one's life with mainstream. Let me actually mute this audio effect because it's quite overpowering. So let me just hear promotion of the idea, with celebrities promoting it, entire careers based around teaching it. Surely there's merit to the law of attraction, but the further you go... So that's okay, but the music is super quiet. And if you solo the track and you look over here to the right, you'll see the levels that the audio is hitting. And when we look at this audio track, it's pretty low. I mean, this is fine as an area for your audio to be at. You normally maybe want it to be within the -24 to -18 to -12, within that range, and you want your narration to be -12 to -6. But it's really not preferable to just be lowering the volume and that's all you do. Sometimes that might be enough, but for when you're doing these kind of voiceover projects, you probably want something better than just that. So I'm going to show you what we do. So I'm just going to reset this audio now so it's on the same level that we had before. And you may have already noticed that the narration still doesn't sound that great either. It doesn't sound like it's popping off. It doesn't sound bassy. And so let me show you what kind of effects that I've learned to apply to my narration to make it sound good. Now, you're going to find effects for audio if you just go into your effects tab over here, and you can search for, you know, anything that you want. So I've got multiband compressor. You can just search for it and you can click it and you can drag it into, you know, one of your audio clips. If I zoom in, so I can just drag it into this audio clip. Now, of course, this isn't efficient because we've just dragged it into one clip, but what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to copy that and paste it into everything that we have here, which you can do. Like, I've selected it here. I'm gonna go into my effects controls. There it is. I can click that, Control C to copy it, and then I can zoom out here on the timeline, select all of this, and then Control V to paste all of those effects in, and that should have pasted in. If you click any other of the audio clips, you'll see that the multiband compressor effect is in there. But of course, that's not efficient. You'd much rather have it done all in one go and apply effects so that it applies for that entire layer. So I'll show you how you can do this. I'll just Control Z all of that stuff that I've just done so that we're back to the default that we had it at. So in order to apply effects to a whole track without having to individually put them in bits of audio is pretty simple. All you've got to do is head up to here to where it says Audio Track Mixer, and sometimes you might see an arrow up here that you have to click the arrow in order to get what you're seeing here, which is these sort of 4 columns that you have. And this sort of these boxes that you'll see. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes free up here. And then you have 4 of them the same the same amount of boxes free. Again, my technical terminology is going to be all over the place, but you kind of see visually what I'm talking about. I'll actually show you what it looks like. So this will probably be what it looks like for you when you go onto the audio track mixer tab, and then this little arrow here is what you have to press, and then you're going to get to see these columns that appear. If you don't have an audio track mixer tab at all, what you can do, and this goes for anytime there's a tab that you're not seeing on Premiere Pro that you're missing, what you can do is just simply go to Window, and then you can just go to Audio Track Mixer here and click on whatever shows up here. So this will probably be named after the sequence that we have. So this will bring it up for you if you don't have it already. I'll actually show you what that looks like. So let's close this panel. Imagine you don't have it here. Go to Window, Audio Track Mixer, bang, there it is. And now you've got it. And then of course it will probably be like this. You want to hit the little arrow in the corner and open it up. Cool. So let's just solo our narration so we can actually hear what we're doing to this. And I'm going to expand it out. So let's play. It begins with a seemingly simple, innocent idea. Okay, so the first things first, what I normally do is you head over here and you want to click the arrow icon, and what you notice is what you can do is you can essentially find a bunch of effects, the same effects that you can find by searching in here, but now you can apply it into one of these columns, and each of these columns represents a single track on your actual timeline. So this first column, and you can see it's labeled audio 1 here, and this is labeled audio 1 here. So on this audio 1 column, I can literally go here and take any of these effects, and everything that I put into here, unfortunately you only get like you only get 5 of these available, which is it's kind of I guess not great, but that's what they give you, and that seems to be enough for me anyway to achieve the effect that I want to. So then any effect that you place here, it's going to be affected for the whole track, all of it, which obviously is a much more efficient way of doing this. So the first effect that I tend to go for is the multi-band compressor. So you can find that if you click the arrow, amplitude and compression, and over here multi-band compressor, and over here I'm not going to explain like everything that you're seeing. Like for some of you that are pretty much aware of all of this stuff as it is, then you understand what you're looking at. But essentially these little sliders that you have here deal with certain frequencies of the audio. So if I play that for you, will bring about positive experience. You'll see that sort of this second column here deals with the frequencies in this area. This third column kind of deals with the frequencies in these area. Something like that. Basically, you can sort of move them up and down to change how loud or how quiet certain frequencies in the audio are. So I'll just give you a demonstration of it. So play. If I lower this this section over here, which is where my voice is mainly present. So if I lower this,
celebrities promoting it, entire careers,
you see what that does to the actual volume. If I lower this bit here as well,
but the further you go down,
this area is more of like the lower ends, the sort of bassy frequencies, which is where my voice is mostly present. You might have it, different, but that's generally, and you can find it by just soloing your narration and looking at. You can see where the audio is mostly present here. It's obviously all coming around this section. So I'm going to bring these back to the top. Now, thankfully, you don't have to do too much messing around. All you've got to do here is in the presets here, click broadcast, and this is generally the setting that I go for my voice. And now let's hear the difference. It begins with a seemingly simple, innocent idea. It's a little louder and it's a little more bassy. What you can do to bring out the bass in your voice even more is you may want to adjust these sliders and maybe move this one where my voice is mostly present in this frequency and this one a little up. So let's hear that. That thinking positive will bring about positive experiences into one's life. So that's generally better. Like there's more bassy kind of sound that comes from my voice. It seems to pop out a little more. This setting broadcast will also make the volume of the track louder. So if it's too loud and you start to see, because sometimes these things will flash up red, these two little boxes here to indicate that it's way too loud. If you see that, you want to just lower the volume. Normally it's just easy. If you see where it says gain here, you can just click, then drag that down to like minus whatever is good enough for your audio to sit between sort of -12 to -0. Normally they kind of want it at -3. I think that's kind of industry average. Forgive me if I'm incorrect on this, but normally -12, -3 is where I keep my narration at here in terms of its volume. So you can see if you just mess around with the gain, -18 obviously lowers it. If we bring it back to what it was,
around teaching it, surely there's merit to the law of attraction.
That's what we have it at, and that's fine with me. If I need to increase the volume later, I'll do it. I'll come back to here and mess around with that again. So that's one effect. That's the multi-band compressor effect. Again, very simple. Just bring it up, set it to broadcast, and maybe play around depending on which area that your voice is most present in, which of these frequencies your voice is most present in. So that's simple. Once you're done with that, click the X button. The next effect that I applied to my narration, if we head over here again, we click the arrow, and it is called dynamics processing. It's under amplitude and compression. So we click dynamics processing, it appears here, and let's double click that so that we actually have it up here for us to kind of mess around with. Again, I'm not going to explain all the technicalities of what you're looking at. A lot of this stuff I've just taken from tutorials. But what we want to do is we want to take, you'll see that there's one point over here. What we want to do is we just want to click that and just drag it up 2 rows up. You see how it's kind of structured in a grid. All I've done is just dragged it 2 rows up, and now let's see what that does to my actual audio track here.
Mainstream promotion of the idea with celebrities promoting it.
So obviously that's made the volume much louder, and you'll see that the red is kind of flashing here. Sometimes it's tough to avoid this, but generally you want to keep it again within that -12, -3 range. But we'll deal with this later. But you should be able to notice how there's a little bit of a, the volume's getting even more richer. You can hear more of the bassiness that comes from it. So I'll play it again.
Entire careers based around teaching it. Surely there's merit.
Cool. Next thing you want to do is, again, on dynamics processing, head down to around here to -70 and just increase this by a little bit as well. And you can kind of play around within this area. And what you can do is you can press play on the actual sequence to hear how what you're doing over here is affecting it.
Of the idea with celebrities promoting it, entire careers based around teaching it. Surely there's merit.
So that sounds fine to me. Just play it around, see how it sounds, and go with whichever one sounds best to you. But after you've sort of done these 2 points on the dynamics processing effect, you're pretty much done. As an important note to be able to see the difference of a before and after, you can come up here to this power button, and if you click it, it will basically disable the effects that you can play on your timeline, what this audio sounds like without the effect that you've just applied. So if you play it
to the law of attraction,
and then we head over back here to where the power button is, and then we're going to turn it on, and now we'll see the difference.
But the further you go down that,
and then I can just click and click off as I'm listening to actually properly hear that difference.
Rabbit hole, the less innocent things become. It's an idea heavily promoted by self-help communities, an idea that some become completely
So you get the point. So that's pretty much the dynamics processing effect that I use. Next thing that we've got here is, let me just remember. So it should be, yes, parametric equalizer. And so we're going to double click on parametric equalizer. And this operates very simple to the multi-band compressor. If I press play on the narration, you'll see that these are all of the frequencies of the audio. Again, apologies if my technical jargon is all over the place. But you can see this is where all the audio is. And this line, you notice that there's like different points that you can click and move around on. But I don't want to do that. I've just hit Control Z there, but it removes it. So let's just bring it back up. Parametric equalizer, double click. So you can move these up and down to actually increase the volume of the frequencies in that area. But thankfully, don't worry too much. This is again a preset thing where we just click here to presets, go to vocal enhancer, and it does all of this for us. And now if you listen to the narration, you can hear quite a bit of a difference.
The law of attraction is no longer a fringe concept.
Let's go back to the start.
With celebrities promoting it, entire careers.
So you can really hear now the bassiness of my voice, and that's all within this section. You can see how it creates this, they call it a high pass. I think it's a low pass. I'm not too sure. Anyway, you see how they create this curve on the sort of lower frequencies, and that makes it sound a lot more bassy and rich.
It's based around.
So let me just turn it off and you'll see what it sounds like before and after.
I'm teaching it. Surely there's merit to the law of attraction. But the further you go down that rabbit hole, the less innocent.
Now, of course, at this point, you're really seeing the red flashes over here. It's way too loud. So what we're going to do is just going to close this. You can mess around with the volume here, I'm just going to go back to multiband compressor and just decrease the gain from here instead. So click here, just lower it a bit and let's play.
Things become. It's an idea heavily promoted by self-help communities.
So that's pretty good. I just might lower it a little bit more. Again, we're aiming for the sort of -12 to -3.
An idea that some become completely identified with. The law of attraction.
That's pretty good.
Is no.
So that's fine with me. So now we close that out and let's see. Next effect that we want to apply after these three. You may notice, in fact, I'll show you before we apply this effect. I'll give you a demonstration. You may notice that you can hear stuff in the background, like a fan noise or the sort of sizzling that you can hear in the background. Sometimes this comes from the mic naturally. Sometimes this is background noise in your room or reverb, etc., etc. I'll just play that you can maybe hear some of it.
Longer a fringe concept.
So actually, I'll zoom in and I'll just expand this bit out. And what you can do is you can just loop areas. I'm going to press I to create an in point, then O to create an out point to just select these 2 points of the timeline. There's also this thing here, loop playback, which you can get by pressing the plus button and finding this icon, this loop playback icon, and hitting OK. And it'll come up. And what that does is just lets you loop the selected area. So if I press play, you can hear it's looping, but you can hear the background noise, the sort of noise. Now, sometimes this gets really annoying, especially if there is quite a lot of background noise going on. Normally it's better to just find a good room and a good place to record so that you don't have to deal with this afterwards. But sometimes, you know, it's going to be there. You may need to just make some little tweaks to kind of decrease this background noise that you hear. So one of the ways in which you can do that through Premiere Pro is you can apply this effect called, let's see, so it's under noise reduction / restoration. It's called denoise. And this is what I mostly use. And so now if we double click this, we can open it up. And what it will do immediately, as soon as you've applied the effect, I'm going to show you, if we press play again on this bit we've looped, you see that's much more quieter in comparison. Let me turn off this effect. So you see it like that. And now it pretty much turns it down. One problem with denoise that you'll notice is if I actually go back to me talking, it kind of hollows out my voice. I'll show you what that sounds like.
Concept.
Well, let me solo this track, not with all the music going on. So
with celebrities promoting it, entire careers based around.
That's with the denoise on. So I turn it off.
And teaching it. Surely there's merit to the law of attraction, but the further you go.
So it kind of, now you may notice this more sometimes in other audio tracks than here. Here it's okay, it's acceptable, but it kind of does sort of mute out my own voice very slightly. And obviously this depends on the slider. So
go down.
The higher you put up this percentage on the slider, the more it's going to do that. So let me just give you an example.
Down that rabbit hole, the less innocent things become. It's an idea heavily promoted by...
Again, it doesn't sound too bad right now because, like, granted, the microphone that I'm using is pretty good. I'm in a pretty good space when I've recorded this. It may be worse for some other people. So generally, I wouldn't recommend turning it right up to 100 unless it's absolutely terrible. And even in those cases, I may recommend re-recording unless you've got no other choice. Normally, I opt in for this sort of 40%, 30% range. Depending on how good it clears out that background noise, but also keeps my narration sounding good. So for here,
self-help communities, an idea that's
36% sounds fine, and you'll notice that the sort of background hissing is not as present anymore. I'll even turn this off so you can.
Some become completely identified.
You can hear it. It's very subtly there.
With the law of attraction is no longer
turn on
a fringe.
Turn on this effect again.
Concept.
It gets rid of pretty much most of it, at least to a point where, along with music and stuff, you're not going to be able to hear it as much.
It very much has successfully...
Cool, so that's denoise. The last effect that I use, and thankfully, you know, I just need 5 effects to do what I do with the audio track. What I noticed is that whenever I have like S sounds or TH like sounds, these kind of sounds like come out really harsh, and I think let me play and try and find an example of this.
Really infiltrated the mainstream. In this 2-part series,
you'll notice, just listen to the S sounds when I'm narrating. They're really harsh, and they kind of almost hurt my ears a little bit. So I'll play it again.
In this 2-part series, I'll be investigating the law of attraction as both an idea and the profit.
So at this point is really good. I'm going to loop this so you can really hear it. So press I on my keyboard, O, and you can get this section here to loop, as long as you have this loop playback button selected. And if you want to get rid of it, then you obviously just click off.
In this 2-part series, I'll be investigating the...
So you see, it's not as bad here. It doesn't sound that bad, but sometimes in a lot of my other videos, it is bad and it's really harsh. And just one way in which effect you can do to kind of remove the harshness of that S sound is an effect here under noise reduction / restoration. It's called... wait, no, it's not under there. It is... Let's see... it's called de-esser, so it's a pretty memorable name if I can find it here. So it's amplitude and compression, and it's de-esser. Select that, go over here, and it pretty much now you can select which frequencies you want this to affect using these 2 bars here that you can click and slide each row. So sometimes mostly my S sounds are within this sort of range here. So let's just play this bit.
In this 2-part series,
and then all you got to do is already giving you a threshold, much like the denoise effect. Depending on this slider, you can really lower the harshness of the S sound, or you can just make it a little more subtle. This obviously you have to listen by ear to see what your S sounds sound like. So let's just go. Let's actually just select this particular area where I'm using S sounds.
In this 2-part series.
So if we move that up.
In this 2-part series.
So obviously you don't want it there. You see how it really hollows out this frequency.
In this 2-part series.
So we don't want that. We want it a little more over here.
In this 2-part series.
That's good to me. I think that's fine.
In this 2-part series.
sounds ridiculous. But that's the usefulness of looping a track, so you can really hone in on certain areas. In order to deselect, by the way, you just right click over here on the track and then click clear in and out, and that helps. So that's pretty much it for my narration. And what you'll notice now, though, if we sort of play from the start and we have the music in there, let's just mute. You can use the M icon here on this to just mute certain tracks. We're going to mute this audio effect and just listen to the narration along with the music.
Experiences into one's life, with mainstream promotion of the idea, with celebrities promoting it, entire careers based around teaching it. Surely there's merit to the law of attraction.
I'm going to skip a little bit ahead.
In this 2-part series, I'll be investigating...
Whoa, okay, so there you go. So you'll notice that the music is incredibly loud. It gets ridiculously loud, and it's almost like my narration is fighting with the music to be heard. And it's kind of just an unpleasant experience to have to even try and listen to this.
The law of attraction is no longer a fringe concept.
So again, one thing that you can begin to sort of avoid this is just lowering the volume of the music itself. Control Z that. So all you can do is literally just you have the music layer like this. You just expand it out by double clicking, and you see this line. You can click and then hold and then just drag up and down to change the audio of it. So you can see how there's a minus box that shows up showing how much you've decreased it by. So that's one way in which you can help with this sort of combating each other sort of thing with the music and narration.
It very much here that some is no longer it very much has succeeded.
But even then, there is still that element of like these 2 pieces of audio are just trying to fight each other to be heard. And so to help with this, what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the second column on our audio track mixer. And this now, if you remember, this second column affects audio 2, which is conveniently where we've got all of our music. And so what I can do here is I can just click this first one, and I'm going to now apply again a multi-band compressor. But this time, if you remember when we were doing the multi-band compressor for my narration, we were messing around with this frequency or these 2 frequencies over here specifically because that's where my voice tends to appear. Now, when it comes to the music, to almost create like a pocket for my narration to fit into that area, what we want to do is we want to actually lower the frequencies in the music in this particular area so that my voice can be heard. And I'll show you kind of what that sounds like now.
Successfully infiltrated the mainstream. The law of attraction is no longer a fringe concept.
So you can kind of hear, it's very subtle to hear. Let me turn it on and off so you can...
It very much has successfully infiltrated.
Again, it's very subtle. I might lower it more, lower this a little more, maybe lower this a bit as well. Play it.
The mainstream. In this 2-part series, I'll be investigating help community. Is no longer a fringe concept. It very much has successfully infiltrated the mainstream. In this 2-part series, I'll be investigating the law of attraction as both an...
So it's a lot more better. Again, this is like a thing where you're going to have to play around. Sometimes you may have to lower the volume during these really loud aspects. It really is up to you and what music you're listening to have to play around with this. But generally what you can do with multiband compressor is lower these certain frequencies where your actual narration and your voice comes in. And so it creates that pocket for your voice to sit there, so it isn't like both the music and your narration are trying to compete to be heard. One other thing that you can do, especially when if this particular piece of music is really loud, or gets really loud to this point, you can see here how that looks on the actual sort of wave format here that appears. Another thing you can add in is an effect called dynamics, and what dynamics lets you do is it lets you actually choose where you want to limit the audio in terms of like how loud it gets. In order to do this, just obviously bring up dynamics here, double click, you've got it open here. Check this limiter box over here, and this lets you limit to give a threshold to where you want the music to actually hit on your sort of on your music here on its volume. I'm like really struggling with the terms, man. But yeah, so we're gonna limit the audio, the music, to about -3 on our threshold. I think actually it may be better to go for, let's try -6. And then let's just play.
Idea and the profitable industry behind it, because what begins as an innocent idea that
just a little bit better. Maybe I'll give it a threshold of, let's go -12. Again, you can play around with this. So that's -12. And what that means is we're just saying we don't want the music to go any louder than this level here. If I actually solo the music track, you'll see how this looks. You see how it stays within this sort of range here. It doesn't surpass the -12. So now let's unsolo that and listen to it with the narration.
Law of attraction successfully infiltrated the mainstream. In this two-part series, I'll be investigating the law of attraction as both an idea and the profitable industry behind it. Because
so you see how that's much better compared to what we had before, where it was really everything was trying to compete. This sounds controlled. It sounds like they're both kind of flowing together. Again, you have to play around. It depends on the music track that you've used, and a bunch of other factors, but you get the general idea. So this is it, really, to tell you the truth. This is, it's mostly the narration, the music that I have to play around with the effects here, and obviously the narration is the most important one. These are the effects that I've been using on my videos. This is stuff that I've learned after doing video editing for a little while now, and I've come to understand kind of what effects work and what don't work. When it comes to anything that isn't narration or music, so like this little audio effect here, what I do is I just manually just lower it myself. It's just easier like that. I don't want to apply like an effect to the entire track when there's a whole bunch of other sound effects and whatnot, and it can get a bit confusing. The only times I've really used the audio track mixer to apply to an entire track is just for narration and just for music. So let's actually listen to the whole thing now that we've got it all put together.
It begins with a seemingly simple, innocent idea that thinking positive will bring about positive experiences into one's life. With mainstream promotion of the idea, with
and you got the general gist of it right there. So I really hope that helps. I know if a couple of people were requesting me do a sort of audio narration settings tutorial. Again, I'm not an expert with this. This is probably one of my weakest points, especially if you look at my old videos. I didn't have that thing where I like it would have like the narration and the music would be competing with each other, and all of this stuff, and like that was a big issue that I had, and now I've learned the effects that I should use to deal with it. This may change over time. Hopefully this will kind of help you skip through those kind of issues that I faced when doing the music, and the really annoying aspects of like I know what it was like. You're creating a video and the music just doesn't work with the narration. It's really frustrating. So hopefully this kind of helps you get a much better idea of how you can, apply effects to your narration and your music to make narration sound better, but also have the music and narration flow together and not be competing to be heard. So yeah, that pretty much concludes this tutorial. As always, if you have any other requests, anything else you want me to talk about or you want me to expand, just send me a message, or just comment if they are seeing this on Patreon. Comment what tutorial you want to see next. I hope that this has been helpful, and I will see you all in the next tutorial or wherever I next see you. Take care.